It's March 11th, 2022, the 11th anniversary of the Fukushima nuclear meltdowns. I'm Dana Durnford. I'm also known as the nuclearproctologist.org. And you can call in if you like at 709-589-4406. 709-589-4406. Always takes us a moment to get these live shows up to cruising speed. The first thing I gotta do is I have to go in and enable embedding. Google turns it off as soon as I go live. I'll show you what I mean. Allow embedding in case somebody wants to stream this as the show is playing on their website. We have a poll for everybody tonight. Did Japan and the nuclear industry really remove the reactor cores from the Fukushima Reactor 4 building? And we have an overwhelming 22 votes that say no. And that's the appropriate answer. There's Reactor 4. And this is the lunatic, crazy media pretending that they're removing the fuel from Reactor 4 building. I'm going to play that, and it occurred to me that these anniversary videos, there is over the next number of days, maybe week, quite a lot of people will show up who don't know much about the subject. So I'm just going to play this clip because it's such an important clip for newcomers. These people to the right, of course, are claiming that they're in a building that doesn't even exist. Hi, everybody. I hope everybody's doing well. Quick boo right here. Make sure everything's going okay. And so the best thing to do on the anniversary shows is just tell the story of Fukushima. You had major radioactive fallout worldwide, and this is one of the models. But to the left is the actual study showing iodine-129. So if you're getting iodine-129 at 220 million atoms per liter of rainwater, it means all the other radioactive fallout is still there. When you look at 129, it doesn't show you all the other isotopes that would have been in the same plume. The model over there is from NOAA, which is a major American media or government agency. My apologies. So another study showed 450,000 times above detection levels of the Xenon-133. It's a very, very harmful isotope. So that's two different studies showing two different isotopes and actual absurd amount. This is an absurd numbers we're talking about. And so there's many, many studies showing different isotopes in absurd numbers. And again, the poll tonight. Hi, everybody. Hope everybody's doing good. Did Japan and the nuclear industry really remove the reactor cores from Reactor 4? Well, that's Reactor 4. The fuel pools would be at the top of the building. So they couldn't remove it, but that didn't stop them from faking it. Here's one of the journalists.
We are here inside Reactor 4 at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant that was severely crippled during the earthquake and tsunami of 2011, leading to the country's worst nuclear disaster.
Right, and so what is the issue?
The ocean current is actually real, and it takes about 45 days at 5 miles per hour, 24 hours a day, and it's 45 days, means it crosses the Pacific Ocean.
So it can cross the Pacific Ocean just by water in 45 days. But of course, the whole planet was covered in 40 days. These models, this was the tsunami model from NOAA, this was the cesium in the Pacific Ocean. They refused to show us that one, and media worldwide was pumping that one out, calling it the radiation model, and then came out and said, hey, it's a fake, when they already knew it was a fake. Suck you in and knock the wind out of your sails. So the Pacific Ocean was actually polluted, just
Maybe
to get
worse
you
than thought. Studies from last
speed.
year indicate that radioactive water will contaminate the entire Pacific Ocean in just 6 years. Kim Min-ji reports.
This graphic shows the gradual contamination of the Pacific Ocean due to leaks of radioactive water from the crippled Fukushima nuclear plant in Japan. The simulation, which was run by a German marine research institute, shows the entire Pacific waters being polluted by radioactive water in just 6 years.
In just 6 years. And so what we done in response to this was we launched research expeditions. And what you're looking at is models of places that I covered from Vancouver, British Columbia to Alaska. And this is part of it. So I've done a lot of the expeditions are done by the speedboat because it's fast and agile. And when you were using the sailboat,
Goodbye, Port Hardy.
and so when I'm using the sailboat, well,
We're still only making 5 miles per hour.
it's a long, slow journey. But then you're towing the speedboat, and the speedboat gets the job done, right? Okay, so what we discovered, unfortunately, was an extinction event. Not almost, not maybe, not gonna be, but it's an actual extinction event. And then I wanted to put this out there first because I think people don't appreciate how much trouble we're actually in. So this is the same as that picture there. It's the same spot. It's an extinction event. And these pictures are all before and after pictures of the same place, in a very pristine place in northern Canada, right up by the Alaska border. And we repeated this for 6 years, year after year. Went up and done the species counts. These would take 4 to 5 months at a time. And what we discovered was the species are missing. They didn't come back year after year, and they were nowhere to be found throughout the entire coastline. So that qualifies and quantifies it as an extinction event. They're actually extinct now. And you can never take any of those pictures again. And people have postulated this was an extinction event. Deteriorating Fukushima nuclear power plant threatens mass extinction around the world. And guess what? They were actually right. And we've also done lots of land research expeditions. I got some footage. I went and pulled the trail cams today. We got heavy rainstorms coming in adverse conditions down here. This model is from France of the radioactive plume from Japan. You can see that the plume covers the entire planet in just 16 days. That's a staggering implication. And unfortunately, there's many other models to back it up. This is a 19-day model where my finger is pointed right there. So what happened was you had 4 reactor buildings confirmed that melted down. And some very strange stuff from all of this. We had the Prime Minister of Japan recently, and each one of them will get their picture taken down by Fukushima. And so these were fake pictures, and nobody knows why they faked it. I'll show you what I mean when I say it's faked. Let me put it on the big screen, make it easier for you. There's nowhere for that person to be behind them, so they put an arm in there for some reason, and then they put the people in the green screen in front of them. Very strange. It's a very strange thing to do. The umbrellas they're holding are transparent. They're transparent, but yet they don't show, on the right-hand side, they don't show the stack, the blue stack behind it. So it's very, very... Now, I do a lot of green screen material, and as far as I can tell, that's not real, and that's what we expect from these people, not to really want to go to a very high nuclear wasteland. So this is reactor 4 to your left and 3 to your right. These were 190-foot buildings, and they had decades of reactor cores stored at the top of the buildings because they don't have a repository to store it in. So the top of both buildings were the repositories. And we see this worldwide at nuclear power plants. They're not actually made to contain that much, but we have the numbers where they are capable of doing it, and we also have the numbers where we know they did it, like reactor 4 had 1,500 plus assemblies in the fuel pools at the top. There's 2 at the top, and that's equal to 5 million plus pounds. This is Arnie Gunnarsson. Arnie Gunnarsson made the assemblies for the fuel pools for 70 power plants with this design, and he refuses to acknowledge that the building looks like this. He asserts that it still looks like that. He refuses to call that a lie. It's the same thing with reactor 3. This was reactor 3, 190-foot buildings. At the top of it was decades of reactor cores. And the significance of this is Chernobyl was 200-ton reactor. These are 800 tons. Chernobyl was mostly graphite. There's a brutal meltdown in Chernobyl. Over 3 million children with permanent disabilities. Many, many, many will die prematurely. There's orphanages after orphanages of disfigured and abandoned children because of radiation. At the top of reactor 3 is the same as reactor 4. The fuel pools at the very top of the buildings, they're actually gone too. And they faked both reactor 3 and reactor 4. Now, why would all kinds of media fake something like that? It's a pretty risky thing to do. And the truth is just shocking. It's just shocking. Again, the background, by the way, doesn't match up to how a camera lens works. So there's a lot going on that people are not able to wrap their mind around if this is the first time watching this kind of documentation. So I'll walk you through it. Fukushima power plants had 6 reactors. They had a major tsunami, major detonation. They had numbers that are incredible. These are incredible numbers, which you expect from this kind of an accident, unfortunately, is 1 million sieverts per hour. And so 5 to 10 sieverts is considered a lethal dose in this environment. Certainly 20 sieverts is in an open environment like this is a lethal dose. Your organs will start to melt right away. And so you can whisk you out of there 60 seconds later, but your organs will keep melting and you will die within about 40 minutes of exposure to just a few moments of this kind of numbers. Reactor 2 detonated and burnt continuously for several days. This is Reactor 2. The emissions you see coming out of there, you breathe that in, you die immediately. And this reactor, let me go back to Reactor 1. So Reactor 1, the fuel pool was ejected from the top of the buildings with decades of reactor cores. It appears that the reactor had went China syndrome down into the earth. And decades, several up to 5 reactor cores were ejected out of the building. Reactor 2 burnt continuously for several days, and the fuel pools and the reactor core. The reactor core and most of the fuel pool that didn't hemorrhage out of the building went China syndrome. When I say that, what I mean by that is it's burning down into the earth, where it's constantly atomizing and aerosoling, ionizing and radiating and emitting anything that comes into contact, like steel or rocks or rebar or cement or dirt. It will just consume that at 9,000 degrees Fahrenheit temperatures. And that's what I mean by it will atomize and aerosol at the same time it's ionizing and irradiating. And then the particulates and the emissions are extremely lethal to all cells, replicating cells, entities, which is all species on this planet. This is what's the stub of a 190-foot building known as Reactor 3. So you can't get fuel out of a pool when the building doesn't exist anymore. But that didn't stop them from trying to convince you they did, like they done with Reactor 4. So Reactor 4, I showed you that clip. Again, it's really hard to appreciate how small that is. And Reactor 3 is to your right. And what they done was they pretended they got the fuel out of the building. And that picture there is a 170-foot structure they put over the stump that was left, and then tried to, and successfully, I might add, convinced the population of the entire planet that they had removed the fuels from the pools on the last anniversary, last year, the 10th anniversary. But obviously, the building was completely destroyed, and the fuel pools have covered the entire planet is where the fuel pools went. That's another model of the radioactive fallout. So you abandon the communities, but claim that everything is okay at the actual ground zero. Now, the United Nations says nobody will suffer any harm from the nuclear meltdown. Which, if that was true, then you wouldn't have abandoned your communities, obviously. And George Bush Sr. called United Nations the New World Order.
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders.
Of the UN founders. Chelsea sees her name in an orange box, but I don't see it in an orange box on my end. I don't know, Chelsea. So last year, United States lifted post-Fukushima import restrictions on Japanese farm products. They had a moratorium on 14 prefectures, counting Fukushima, and that's the other 13 prefectures is named right there. I put them into the Google search engine, and that's the 14 prefectures. Half of Japan, the food was banned. Not just the Fukushima nuclear meltdown site or prefecture itself. And what makes this insidious and lunatic is that in Fukushima prefecture, they're actually growing food right alongside of 1-ton bags. And so that defies any kind of rationale or any kind of logic. Unless they're trying to exterminate us, why else would you harvest and sell food? Why would you grow food in a nuclear wasteland, let alone harvest it and sell it? Is a frightening thought. Canadian companies who tried to get the soil tested in Canada were rejected by private companies. Government agencies and universities had all refused to get involved to check the soil 5,500 miles away. Soil from the Fukushima radiation decontamination work to be reused in farmland. Try wrapping your mind around that one. So it's pretty obvious that there's an agenda going on that's extraordinarily nefarious, and that the people that are perpetrating it seems to have no worry whatsoever that somebody is going to object, which is correct, by the way, or be able to stop them. And that's probably the most frightening part of this, is that facet of the story. When you pick 60 million 1-ton bags up, you really got to start asking yourself questions. Is it safe to eat food again? And what's the repercussion from eating radiation? Is 1,800 illnesses and diseases, not immune deficiencies and injuries. There's heart problems and liver problems and lung and respiratory and pituitary and thyroid and adrenaline and Alzheimer's, dementia and autism and diabetes and Down syndrome, schizophrenia. Long before, there's 1,800 illnesses will show up before cancer. So we're seeing that explode worldwide. I'm going to speed up. This is another model of the radioactive fallout. And that's the 27th of March, 2011. So that's the 31st, that's 20-day model of radioactive fallout. It's still hemorrhaging out of Japan. So all the models are showing us that they have not been able to contain the radiation emissions from pouring water on the reactors. They're hemorrhaging directly into the ocean. They claim there's 1,000 tanks. We counted the tanks. There's actually only 450 or 750 tanks. And when you look back through their history, in 2013, they had 1,000 tanks. In 2014, they had 1,200 tanks. And in 2017, they had 1,000 tanks. 2014, rather, they, again, later, they claimed instead of 1,200, then 1,000. 2017 was 900 tanks. And 2021 is 1,000 tanks. So 1,000 tanks in 2013, 1,000 tanks in 2022. How many tanks did they fill up in the last 9 years? And the problem with filling the tanks up...
Lewis!
The problem with filling the tanks up...
Mom!
Is they're only built for a couple of years.
Mommy!
And they can't contain gamma shines, X-rays, neutrons.
Ma! Mum! 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 Mummy! Mummy! Mama! Mama! Mama!
What?
Hi.
Yeah, I kind of feel like that sometimes. And not the last part, but the first part. So another problem with the tanks is what's known as a Bromson lung effect. Let me go back to this part. 2 sieverts an hour of just beta, so they're not counting gamma, X-rays, and neutron emissions, just beta. 2 sieverts an hour means the tanks are 1.4 million sieverts. So if you got one tank here and you're stood up way over there, that's a lethal dose. You can't get back on the site. So why would they build 1,000 tanks, Dana, and not fill them up, if that's what you're suggesting, and I am, is to trick you into complacency, into thinking that it's not poisoning and harming the Pacific. As I showed you at the beginning, it's an actual extinction event. We actually done the research expeditions that I'm still haunted by those expeditions, by the way. So the tanks have another problem. This site, rather, has another problem. So this is ground zero. Think of it that way. And what happens is, and you've seen this in North America, Canada, the United States also, is there's so many particles and atoms of ionizing radiation accumulated. They pulse energy at the speed of light at 186,000 miles per second. Almost, not quite. Almost 186,000 miles per second. And so when these energies of gammas, alphas, neutrons, and betas, they reject each other, like a magnet rejects different polarities. So when they get close to each other, they'll actually change direction at almost 186,000 miles per second. It's known as braking. So they hit each other, braking. They brake and then change direction at the speed of light. And that creates another special type of X-ray effect. And this stuff will sterilize the insects, the birds, the small mammals and animals within a short period of time, and the bigger species later in increments over time. And so with one more quake, Japan will cease to exist. Well, it's not going to disappear. It's the radioactive fallout that they were alluding to. And because the building they were talking about, Reactor 4, had already lost its entire inventory, this was the cover story, but with a twist, with a warning, that the resulting destruction of a broken down power plant will take half the planet with it. And what they mean by that was radioactive fallout. And I showed you some of those models. Here's one of those models again. And this is NOAA's model of the radioactive fallout. So the emissions from a single nuclear power plant is capable of causing great harm to the entire ecosystem and permanent. It's permanent. It's permanent. So they had a major tsunami that inundated around 15 nuclear power plants, not just Fukushima, 6. Fukushima had 6 of them, the Daiichi. 15 reactors in the areas affected. The Durning plant, which is 10 miles south, is also being decommissioned, and they had major issues with it. So once that happened, you're talking about around 680 kilometers of the coastline had the infrastructure torn from it, had all the telephone poles destroyed, all the infrastructure completely destroyed, all the big businesses were shredded, all kinds of chemicals and gas and liquids, abrasive material was released into the environment. Now, Reactor 3 is the highly lethal mixed oxide known as MOX fuel. This is where they reclaimed hot particles from nuclear missiles and fuel, usually really old fuel, very volatile stuff. And so this should be illegal worldwide for many other reasons, because in order to recover the hot particles, you have to release an absurd amount of radiation into the environment. The biggest byproduct of the irradiated fuel rods is the curium isotope. And curium isotope, you need lead shielding 20 times thicker than you do for plutonium. And plutonium was named after the devil. So the mixed oxide fuel facility, a typical nuclear meltdown, the emissions are 1 billion times more toxic than industrial poison, according to the EPA. Now, the mixed oxide is 1 billion times more toxic. They're all hot particles, and they covered our planet in short order. So there was a total destruction at these facilities. It was permanent. And there was no way to restore power or cooling, and these reactors all melted down that we know about. It was incredible, heartbreaking, just gut-wrenching scenes. And the whole country is still traumatized, no doubt. So the nuclear industry took advantage of this and immediately enacted the cover story. This coming up now is the explosion from that building you were just looking at. That was reactor 1. Remember, those yellow or those white buildings you see are 190 feet high. Let me play the explosion one more time. So you can see that's a major detonation. Unit 2 completely liquefied, 100% liquefaction of the uranium core. And we've never seen this in the history of nuclear power. It's gone China syndrome. Whatever never hemorrhaged out the side of it is gone down into the earth. And I'll explain that facet of it coming up a bit more. Reactor 3, I'll show you the real explosion. Here's the real explosion of reactor 3. Now, you're going to see big chunks falling back down quite quickly. They'll fall quicker than the plume itself, which means it's material, right? And that's the reactor core, and the fuel pools were actually ejected from reactor 3. And so they claim that number 3 fuel pool poses a greater risk than number 4, but neither one of those pools existed. That's the cover story, see? The cover story is truly insidious. So we have, each of the buildings had decades of reactor cores. And so let's say that there's 20 reactors of material from the 4 buildings that were destroyed, gone China syndrome, or burnt and released into the environment. And so you're talking about each reactor core is 800 tons. So last year in January, they released 736 pictures. Now in my playlist on my site, I go through these pictures, and there was another 1,900 pictures that were released. And there's another playlist where I went out and explained what those pictures actually mean. They contradict the official narrative dramatically with the documentation, obviously. And what these pictures were taken from a drone, and all of these pictures I'm going to show you, I had zoomed in. And what I discovered was that all of the reactor buildings were redacted, but up there was what's known as a common spent fuel pool. It had around 10 million pounds into it. And so it was really interesting to see all these buildings redacted. This was the original footage. And there's only one reason you would redact the common spent fuel pool, is because it was melting down. Behind the building, you can see transport truck containers to give you context of size. And these were incredible events. That's the Unit 1, me messing with it. Okay, so in Japan, where they're growing food and people are still living, these are human lab rats. United Nations Scientific Committee on the Effect of Atomic Radiation. And I personally think that United Nations should be prosecuted for crimes against humanity for what they have done and continue to do. This model that they done was only based on gamma emissions from cesium, which is an incredible betrayal, really, because you're more worried about curium fission products, because that's the biggest byproduct of the radiated fuel rods. UN finds no adverse health effects on Fukushima disaster. But the second row is atomic decays per second per square meter in those communities. And this last year, these couple of headlines I'm going to show you from last year from United Nations saying there's experts saying radiation from Fukushima will have no negative health effects. And when you see the numbers and you see that particular headline, that should shock you. That media after media last year, that was their campaign for the anniversary last year, was no adverse health effects. This is an absurdness to even suggest there was no health effects. This is an outrageous betrayal against all of humanity and all species on the planet. So this second row is atomic decays per square meter. These are staggering numbers, but they're only gamma on top of that. So the numbers would multiply it by huge. There's a huge omissions and lies going on here. Once again, the second row, you can see all of these communities have been abandoned by the nuclear industry. Air samples in Tokyo are 270 times more contaminated than cesium, which is a gamma, then global weapons fallout peak. Again, when you see I'm only talking about cesium, this is what they've been doing now for 76 years, is lulling you into complacency by only acknowledging the cesium isotopes. In Canada, radiation doses in the Northeast and Great Lakes were equal to the West Coast. Now, the West Coast is a significant fallout. This model is based on 20 days. If you let the model run for another 20 days, the rest of the planet is covered, obviously. Now, Fukushima radioactive fallout is global warming. It's the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak. So throughout history, with many, many emissions, accidents, the fuel pools that are only meant to contain a couple of 100 tons are being stuffed with millions. And they're not designed to do that. So the fuel that goes into the pool is still splitting the atoms all day, every day. Instead of powering 1 million homes, it's still producing the atoms that would produce the heat for 1 million homes. But those atoms in the fuel pool have no containment, so they're released into the environment. And this also is one of the sickest facets of nuclear, is most nuclear power plants are surrounded by farms right up to the border of the nuclear power site itself. And that is terrifying and horrifying that they do that. That is absolutely a genocide to do something like that. But what happens is all this radiation from the bottom of the ocean floor all the way to the upper troposphere and higher is an invisible snowstorm that you can't see it or smell it or taste it or hear it or feel it or touch it or pick it up. But it's pulsing energy every second at the speed of light, heating the entire planet up. It's also killing off the base is the food chain, the base is the oxygen chain, the base is the carbon sequestering chain, what you know as the phytoplankton and your trees. And it kills the bacteria in your forest, so your forests don't break down, as we see what happened with Chernobyl over decades of studies. And when you have a forest fire come through there, because the litter didn't decompose like it normally would, because the bacteria chain has been exterminated, then you have very volatile, highly... And what happens is you have all this material, so you have all these big fire flakes will rise up. That stuff normally would have been decomposed, and you wouldn't have fire blowing in the wind and landing everywhere at an accelerated rate that we see going on. Here, 150 kilometers from Fukushima plant is as radioactive as close to the meltdown, but that's true for North America. And that nuclear radiation is the most carcinogenic thing that exists. It is the most carcinogenic thing that exists. So 10 sieverts per hour is considered a fatal radiation level, but obviously, million sieverts is fatal. That's a Medusa. Just looking, if you can see it, you're going to get a lethal dose. So this is why they ran out of, there's no more homeless in Japan. They sacrificed them on the nuclear meltdowns. Okay. What was really interesting is they have destroyed reactors, but they're both the official pictures. The fuel pools were at the top of the buildings. They can't exist. So the cover story kind of goes like this. The building is only a stump that's left, as I showed you earlier. They put this structure with cranes and homeless. There is some homeless involved in doing this. But it was all built off-site, brought in, and it's all held together by gravity. The big panel, that panel there is a single panel. So the crane will bring it in, it'll drop it, gravity will hold it into place. So they built this structure off-site, brought it in, put the panels on it, and then claimed it looked like the building to your left. And because people don't understand the nuances of nuclear power, they weren't able to appreciate the deception. So again, here's what it looks like underneath the structure they built to the right. But they're both the official pictures, by the way. They're both official pictures. Yeah, hello. Hey, you got some more numbers for us tonight? What's going on here?
I was looking at that, people were wondering about sea salt.
Hey, I'll put you on the, I'm going to put you on the microphone.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Okay, just give me a second, I'll give you a quick introduction. Okay, so this is our friend with a spectrometer, a real one. And periodically he calls in with new numbers from different objects and foods that he's testing in rainwater. And so tonight you have some, you want to go ahead and explain to everybody what you...
Yeah, a few people, on the list on the side there, they was wondering about sea salt, so I thought that'd be a good idea. So, I just went to the supermarket and said natural sea salt, but it came up with 100 counts a minute, or 99.9, per minute per liter of salt.
Of cesium.
Yeah, it's probably worse.
Of gamma,
because
right?
I didn't... Of gamma, yeah. Cesium-137.
Okay.
I didn't even do any unshielding to it.
Okay.
Usually, because I've tried running different food, before and after an unshielding process,
Right.
to get the isotopes to fly out of it.
Okay.
So yeah, it came up like that. So it's there. Now the seaweed's a different story. Because I don't know if the seaweed, was grown indoors or if they go out and just pick it up out of the ocean or whatever.
Yeah, no,
So,
I'm assuming the ocean,
and-
but go ahead, yeah. So you're check, because we
something-
talked about this last time, and I suggested you check the seaweed from the supermarkets, right? And so that's what we're talking about now. Go ahead, yep.
Yeah. Now, the other thing, too, about seaweed is that a lot of those things, like especially algae, they hold on to it really good. And even if it's in there, it won't come out of it. And then these snacks were like these real thin, oily things, and I couldn't do anything to unshield it.
Okay.
So it came up negative, but I don't know if it was grown indoors, and I couldn't unshield it. So it's totally unconclusive. If it's in the ocean, I'm betting, especially the Pacific,
Right.
I'm sure it's going to be in there. It's in the
Yeah,
fish.
it has to be picking up something, yep.
Lobsters and stuff like that. But I don't know if I mentioned it last time, but I tested my piss, and I was getting like 266 counts a minute from that.
Yeah, no, I don't
So,
remember you mentioning that one. That's scary as hell.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, we're all eating
Which
it,
is what we expect that on top. That's the sad and horrific thing about that. And that there was a study out of California I cover a lot of times where they were suggesting that the males of California were sequestering around 360 atoms of the sulfur, radioactive sulfur, each day in their testicles. That has to be true for all the insects and birds and mammals and animals too, right? So go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I tried some oats and honey cereal that was like 366.6. I may have mentioned that last time.
I
But,
don't
I just
remember.
wanted to,
That's scary because
Yeah,
kids eat that. And that 11 becquerels a kilogram, children start to see heart problems. So that's terrifying. Go ahead. Yeah, go.
oh yeah, we are getting a lot more, kids born with heart problems. They got to have heart surgery right from the time they're born.
Right, congenital malformation, yeah. There's a huge spike in Japan. A study from 2019 was showing 14.2% per 100,000 live births need open heart surgery. 14,200 every 100,000 across the country needs open heart surgery of neonates and infants.
Wow.
Go ahead.
I
Yeah,
guess that's,
you're right.
Yeah,
Well, you're
so,
right in what you were
they're
saying.
getting
Yeah.
blasted. But back to the algae stuff. They make a, this Russian doctor came up with a mixture of algae to help clear that out of your system.
Right. Yeah.
It's an old thing. It was people use it for getting heavy metals, lead.
Right. That's right. Yeah.
Mercury.
Yeah,
and
I've
all
read
that
quite a
other
few
stuff.
studies
Yeah.
on Peruvian blue and other entities that were pretty
Yeah,
good
so
at aggregating some of the radiation, at least some of it. So that's good.
Yeah, I take it. I'm sitting here looking at the instrument, looking at what's going in me.
Well, you're getting over 300 counts
So
a
I'd
minute.
like to
You're
get
getting
it
300 counts a minute over your excrements, then.
Yeah.
Just it's sobering, stunning revelation.
Yeah, and then, and then a lot of this other stuff isn't helping. If you're getting the jab, I guess you can call it.
Yeah, you don't want that thing. No, that's what everybody's referring to now, getting the jab. There's actually a trial going on in Hague right now about that, right? Real prosecutors, real lawyers, real judges, and they're calling it a pandemic. And I call it a scandemic. They call it a pandemic, but.
Yeah, there isn't any question in my mind. I looked into that quite a bit. And, they arrested that one guy. I think he was the president of, or the chief science guy at Harvard or something. They arrested him and they convicted him not that long ago.
Is that right? I have to look
Over
that one
that.
up. That's
Oh,
crazy.
yeah, they got him with stuff in his suitcase. And
Right, yeah, I
yeah,
kind of
they caught
remember
him
a bit
red-handed,
now. Right, you are.
You know,
Okay,
dealing with that stuff with China. All right,
hey,
I'll
listen,
let you
that
go.
that,
I
that
just
was
wanted to
that
throw
was
that at
yeah
you.
that was
That.
that was great information. That's huge. I really appreciate it. Okay, my friend, happy
Okay,
happy anniversary.
Oh, yeah. Right. All right, God bless.
Yeah, God bless you. Have a nice night. Okay, bye-bye. We'll give Kevin Blanche a call in a few minutes here before I forget, because I might forget. Okay, so doomsday-like radiation released if there's a fire in the pool at Unit 4. It would be a global catastrophe. So there's Unit 4. It doesn't even exist anymore. So it's a global catastrophe. And then the research that I showed you at the beginning of the show quantifies those assertions, right? You had huge numbers on the west coast of 1 million becquerels, of 20 million particles of iodine-131. And for every iodine-131 created, there's 10 times more iodine-132 and 30 times more iodine-133 and 31 times more iodine-129. The iodine-132 and 133 are actually 9 to 10 times more effective at ionizing and radiating the thyroid glands of insects and birds and animals and mammals and humans than the 131 is. And the 131 is unbelievably efficient at it. And what happens with the iodine isotopes in particular is they go in, not all of it, but a lot of it will sequester in the thyroid glands of birds and insects and mammals and humans and all the species. And it converts it into radioactive hormones. And that's distributed out to all the important, and particularly your pituitary gland, but also throughout your entire body, hormones are distributed out. And so you can end up with incredible illnesses and diseases and autoimmune deficiencies and injuries. Not could, but you will, right? See, Stephen Young made it tonight. Stephen Young had got incredibly sick last year, or the year before, I guess. And so he's just starting to come around, because I know a few people here were asking, how is Stephen Young doing? I just wanted to make sure that those who didn't see the comments earlier, he is starting to come around. I was talking to him on the phone, and yesterday he's got, like you say, it's baby steps. He's got a long way to go, and so all we can say is hope and pray for him, and the best wishes and success with his rehabilitation. Because Stephen's been around a very long time, right? And we were shocked to hear that he had suffered. So rain with 20 million particulates of radioactive iodine, and the particles are particularly brutal on the body and insects and mammals and animals. West Coast hit with 220 million atoms per liter. So of just iodine-129, that same liter would have been saturated with all the other isotopes. Because that's how they do it, right? It's a mathematical extrapolation of a number. So they'll get a number of what they can find on a Geiger counter. Like my Geiger counter is reading gamma. And they can extrapolate beta and alpha and neutrons, but they're not going to do it for you. They don't want the population understanding how to work that out on their own, because that will counter what they're trying to do. Another study showed 1,500 atoms of radioactive sulfur per cubic meter of air in California. These are the radioactive sulfur, peroxide hydrogen. These were the buckyballs, where the sulfur is the salt, and the sulfur is from salt water being sprayed on the reactors because they had no access to borated or fresh water. It's supposed to be just a certain water you spray on the reactors because they can go into a recriticality again quite easily. And so desperation and its ludicrousness, they were spraying salt water on these reactors. And they knew from the 1950s and 60s ocean testing what the results were going to be was that the sulfur became spherical balls and were able to ingest curium and uranium, plutonium and americium, neptunium, and 1,000 different types of very dangerous fission products into these little balls and become like super hot particles. They're very mobile, they're very easy to liberate back into the environment, they're very energetic, and there's little known about the long-term effect, but you can postulate quite quickly what the long-term effect of any hot particle is. It's around 1,800 diseases before the cancer shows up. Former Japanese ambassador, no single weapon competes with the potential damage from Fukushima Unit 4. So Unit 4 is over there, but I'm going to play this clip of 4 different medias, major media, so the producers, the editors, the executive, the owners of those medias, and everybody who worked at these medias participated in this lie in order to deceive you, manipulate you, and coerce you, and deceive you. So let's play this clip. It's a very short clip, but they're claiming they're in a fuel pool to the left, 100 feet above the wreckage.
I'm standing is on top of what used to be reactor building number 4. The whole of this building was blown apart by a huge explosion.
We are here inside Reactor 4 at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant that was severely crippled during the earthquake and tsunami of 2011.
Of the decommissioning work taking place here in Reactor 4.
At the end of our tour, we were checked for radiation exposure. In 4 hours, I received the equivalent of less than a chest X-ray.
1,500 highly radioactive fuel rods inside this pool. They've got to move them outside of this reactor.
Okay, and so they're not in or the fuel pool above the building to your left. So why are they doing that? And I got their names, their network names also. And Rupert Winfield Hayes, in particular from the BBC, also claimed to be inside of Reactor 3, which also doesn't exist. So they claim to be in a fuel pool above that building. Over 100 feet above that building is where the fuel pool would normally be. And it's the same thing for Reactor 3, which you're looking at right now. So let's give Kevin Blanche a call. Maybe we can catch him. I know he's out because it's the anniversary. He's also on the go today. Maybe we can get him for 15 minutes. Where's Kevin? We talked. Oh, there he is. Now, Kevin was expecting, hopefully, this phone call. Hey, Kevin, it's Dana. How are you? You want to give us an update for 10 or 15 minutes here? Yeah? Okay. Let's put you on here. Hang on. Okay, so Kevin, you're live. Kevin's going to give us an update from what he's up to today. Are you, Kevin?
Well, this is the first time on 9/11 anniversary I stayed home. I'm in the belly of the beast, as you know, my home.
Yeah.
Weber State University, which is the nuclear energy for-profiteer university that built it. And so I got the phone having issues.
That's okay. No rush. Take your time, Kevin. So you're down.
Here, call me right back, Dana. This phone's blinking.
Okay, I'll call you back in a few minutes.
Just 5 minutes. Give me 5 minutes.
Okay, Kevin.
I'm
5.
having
I'll call you.
issues.
Yeah, I'll call you in 5. Okay, we'll call Kevin back in 5 minutes here. And yeah, like you say, Kevin's in the belly of the beast. Explosions at Fukushima Unit 1, 3, and 4 may have caused the inventory of the nuclear rods to be lost from the spent fuel pools. Nuclear rods being the reactor cores. And so when you look at the picture of the building, it's pretty easy to remember. I think it's just stunning that they done that they pretend that they were in a building that don't exist. Well, let me put it another way. I think it's terrifying that they had done that. I mean, my goodness. In order to perpetrate these lies, the actual media itself had to participate in it, not just the actors. That is terrifying that they done that to us. Arnie Gunnarsson is also, what he done to us is terrifying. He made the assemblies for the fuel pools. And he refused to reject the picture behind him that I got there. And this is what it actually looks like. He refuses to acknowledge this is reactor 4. He refuses to acknowledge that the reactor 4 fuel pool doesn't exist. And he refuses to acknowledge also that reactor 3 fuel pools are gone. It's so frightening that people like that there's people out there in the public who got an incredible education just to lie to you. So that, for some people, I'm pretty sure sounds incredible. So they built the structure off-site, and he brought it in and he put it over reactor 3. It doesn't physically touch reactor 3 because there's nothing left to the building. The structure is 170 feet high. The building is originally 190 feet high. And then they claim they're in the building taking the fuel out of the pools. But below, when you look at the zooms, because there's not many pictures you can do that with, but we did find some high-quality pictures where we're actually able to zoom in on reactor 3. And again, the structure, they put the structure over the destroyed buildings, the stumps of the buildings. To your right is reactor 3. Here's another example of reactor 3. So they gutted it, stripped it down to nothing, to a little stump that I just showed you earlier, and then put this structure there in order to manipulate you and trick you. And so here's what the stump would look like. And they put a 170-foot building over it to mimic the height of a normal building. And then claimed they're inside the building. So there's a lot of deception going on. It's been going on for a very long time. And they're not going to back up unless the world starts saying, hey, this is not true. Imagine if Greenpeace, for instance, who I've tweeted this picture to no less than 40 times, and different variations of it, with the actors pretending they're in the pool, and asked Greenpeace to denounce that picture and acknowledge the building actually looks like this. Greenpeace refused to do it. And so therefore, now these pictures here, I'll get it out of the way. This was there's only one example of this picture. This is at my site. What you're looking at right now is the only examples of these pictures. They were extrapolated from a single picture from the Japan Times. And Japan Times, now you can't download their pictures anymore. Most likely because we jacked this documentation I'm going to show to you. When I zoomed in on the pictures, we got stunningly clear pictures. That's the remnants of reactor 4. Now, the building, you can see the debris right there. This is lethal doses anywhere near it. And that's why they didn't try to remediate it or clean it up. And so when I zoomed in on it, it was the same with reactor 4. The buildings are completely annihilated, but they tricked and deceived us and pretended that the buildings were looking like the left instead of what they actually looked like to the right. Now, another facet of this story that a lot of people are not aware of is that there's steam coming out of the ground and it's covering the whole site. At one of the spots, they have a stationary Geiger counters. We're showing 4.5 sieverts coming out of the ground. These are lethal doses. Workers say the ground, in 6 places, the ground is cracked. And you can see the steam to the right. That's coming out of the ground where the whole site disappears. Now, the Geiger counters are at 10 sieverts an hour is all they can read. And the speed of the plume to the right is at 40 times normal speed. But that's a radioactive plume coming up from the China syndrome. There was 6 places where the steam's coming out of the ground, and it was recorded at 10 sieverts an hour, which are lethal doses. And what that translates into is that the whole site, they abandoned that site repeatedly because of this lethal, invisible, deadly, because this is only visible in certain conditions, right? Is time to call Kevin back? Let me check here. He said 5 minutes, right? Yeah, that's 5 minutes. Let's try again. Hi, Kevin. Are you okay now, you think? Yeah. Okay, I'm going to put you on the speaker. So, Kevin, what are you doing for the anniversary? Would you like to share that with everybody?
I did a couple interviews in Europe.
Okay.
There's been some French companies interviewing me over the last year. So, believe it or not, in France, of all places.
Yeah,
There's
really.
a big movement in France that the anti-nuclear movement, believe it or not, of all places, it's much bigger than people would think. And so I stayed home for the first time because, I'm having finance issues, money. And anyway, because I'm so kettled, I just don't have the following like I used to. And so I stayed here at the belly of the beast, Weber State, Wattis Construction, Utah Construction, who built up the nuclear industry. I'm in the belly of the beast, so, I'm following along the nightmare in Eastern Europe that ties into all this. But, it's so irony that, Fukushima is 11 years and what's going on as far as the nuclear reactors, which I've been fighting those reactors in Ukraine for decades. And so it's unbelievable to watch the media try to spin this. The media in the early days, that's when you get good media, when something breaks quickly, because they all try to eat each other. So this is the first time in over 4,000 days in 11 years that any mainstream media even mentioned the word Fukushima. And it's headlined several times. And, could be Fukushima-style meltdown, worst case scenario headline. So it just proves to you their mouths. It's more evidence in the legality. They should sue the mainstream media because now they're calling out this could be the worst case scenario like Fukushima. So what that does proves that they've known the whole time and they've refused to put any kind of narrative out there because they got nervous and they got scared when the missiles were flying into Chernobyl and the Big Z. So it's heartbreaking to watch. I've been looking everywhere all day on all mainstream media outlets everywhere. Do you know no one's reporting this is even the anniversary of Fukushima?
Right, just some Japanese media, but nobody else. You're right.
Japan had giant protests today because, of course, they always do the silence. They do the prayer. Massive, by hundreds of millions of people prayed over the disaster.
Wow, Japan's media was all propaganda. I'm gonna cover it on Monday. Go ahead, Kevin.
They're the worst, but they're not the worst. We are Japan. But the thing is, so I found one article on the scumbag Newsweek of all the media, and it says as Fukushima's memory fades, Japan tries to reboot, which is total bullshit. There's all kinds of reports coming right out of Fukushima. The whole, and I need to say this to people. Fukushima is equivalent to a state here. It's a prefecture, and it's a massive, it's giant piece of real estate as far as the size of Japan goes. Japan's an island. It's not that big. That area it's been well documented by real journalists that they've gone from 22% renewables this decade to 46% renewables. And you won't find that anywhere in the media. they're spinning it. Oh, Japan is the memory fades. They're trying to reboot nuclear. They're not rebooting any nuclear. None. It ain't going to happen. It's propaganda. And we get fed I mean, well, what's that old line we used when we was kids? We're like mushrooms. They keep us in the dirt, dark, and feed us full of shit.
Yeah, no, that's right, yeah.
And so, because this is the first year I've been able to really watch, because I'm always on the road. I usually, walk with the monkey, and I walk to Diablo Canyon. I'm somewhere, but this is the first time I've ever been able to stay home, and I've watched the media and, monitored the media. Nothing. And the thing that really blows my mind, Dana, all these so-called YouTube vloggers and bloggers, they've slowly nuanced them, like you and I. If they mention Fukushima or their sites go down, they all have AdSense accounts. They're all bowing to their AdSense account, the Freudian pigs they are. And so I've watched it. So we could blame mainstream media. We know the dirtbags they are. What about so-called alternative media? Remember when Alex Jones used to go Fukushima crazy all the time?
Yeah.
And all the bloggers and bloggers, there were hundreds of them, Fukushima mad. But I look back on it, they were there for one reason, to sell you survival merchandise. They were there to sell you water filters, bunkers, food supplies. They were never in it for the right reason. And then they just dropped it. And so we could blame the scumbag mainstream media, which they are to blame. They should, I call them black and yellow media. They should be locked up, all of them. I mean, it's criminal.
Yeah, they should.
What about these millions and billions, gazillions of radio gaga morons out there? It's like Joe Rogan. Everybody bows to that moron. Joe Rogan is under Rush Limbaugh light. He's pathetic. And then somebody's always telling me, oh, Gerald, and I know Gerald personally, and he's a smart guy. He doesn't cover Fukushima. None of them do. Why? It blows my mind.
Yeah, there's a disconnect.
Huge fellowships.
There's a disconnect, right?
Well, I think anybody who's even went down the Fukushima pipeline gets kettled so hard. I invented the term internet kettling, and they're all bowing to their AdSense accounts. So as soon as they talk Fukushima, they're like, God, I did a video on my viewership went down immediately 34%. Oh, I did another one, it went down 62%. Oh, not going to talk about that. And so who's really the activist? Who's really the journalist? Any journalist, well, they're not journalists, whatever they are, so they're nothing but a bunch of, media whores is all they are. They're not even that. I mean, I don't know what they are.
No,
They're
it's a zombie apocalypse. I won't eat mushrooms ever under any circumstances.
Oh, no. Hell no.
No, zero possibility. Or berries. I won't touch it, or byproducts. It's
me neither.
Yes, it's hard. I love mushrooms. But you can't eat them. Go ahead.
Yeah, me too. I love them, and I love tuna before I have to. I ate a lot of fish.
Yeah, I used to like tuna. Food. Yeah, me too.
At least I love it. But post-Fukushima, and I've been battling leukemia for 10 years, and given 2 months to live, or going to the bone. I mean, I'm a 1% survivor, and so I've done it through diet. And I have a really world-class dietitian that I work with, and she's the best. And her and I have worked together, and she's right. What the worst thing you can probably eat as far as poison when it comes to radiation in Fukushima is dairy products.
Yeah, that's right, Jim.
And the reason, because we all,
I've covered that a lot, actually. It's scary.
Yeah, you've done a good job on that.
It's scary. I'm just heartbroken because we don't have, we're watching an extinction event play out, and everybody's running around with their thumbs in their eyes, or worse, or sticking it in people's eyes by misinformation, deception, deceit, and dishonesty. How are we going to have a future,
Yeah, well, that's the thing. And the thing is that blows my mind. When I first hypothesized it, the day that it happened, I stood right here, and, I was in the Energy Solutions Nevada test site protesting that night. I was protesting the Italian waste coming in. And I got home, and I still had a TV, and, the live cam, the activists on CNN had put it on. And I got home, and I saw that. I'm like, oh, no. And I jumped up, and I put up a video, that famous video. And It went crazy. They're lying. You know, Arnie Gunderson was, and I did videos every day. The first 3-4 days, Arnie Gunderson was in my site commenting every day, arguing with me, saying, no, Kevin, you're wrong. This is not a meltdown. These are hydrogen blasts. And Helga Caldecott at her symposium told me I could not use the F word at an anti-nuclear symposium just 2 years later.
Yeah.
And Chris Busby, while I was in the bone marrow transplant, when I got sick at 20, I mean, I'm going out of a coma, I started getting emails from Chris Busby, and he was threatening me. And I'm like, who are these people?
Yeah, no
these
kidding.
These are supposed to be our friends. Well, there's the problem.
Well, like, just to let me remind people what Kevin's saying there is that Arnie Gunderson, Helen Caldecott, and Christopher Busby is the only friend they are is the nuclear industry. They were put on a pedestal, they were fed to everybody, and they stabbed everybody that went to them. It's just horrifying. These are murderers and mass genocide machines.
In the back, hardcore.
They're straight up murderers. That's what these people are. It's really something.
The thing is,
go ahead, Kevin.
Dana, I invented the Million Mass March, which we had 7 million people on the back of Fukushima. You know, and that's what it blew out. It was giant. RT used to follow us around. And I remember telling John Anthony, because we and I started together, and it was massive, all about Fukushima. And I used to tell John, because they interview us in front of the White House, we're there, you know, the whole time. And I'm like, you know, they give me the creeps. They're really Russian. And I said, I don't trust them, John. And so they would always, without my permission, they would use my voice up there and they would chop it out. And I told John, I says, I'm not going to do shit with those guys. Don't trust them. And I look back on it because Chris Busby went on RT. And Chris Busby, on day 4, said that Pacific Ocean was a big place and that would dilute. You know, and
he also said the radiation. He also said the radiation couldn't make it to North America. And I used to use those clips all the time, what you're talking about. Go ahead, Kevin.
I know you did. And so, like, oh, my God, you know, so, you know, I'm an old professor of environmental economics. You know, I graduated the #1 school of environmental economics in the world at the time when the legendary finance professor Clyde Cooley was there. At the belly of the beast, the Wattis School is the Wattises who built the nuclear industry. The ARG, when they merged in 1975, Utah Construction, the biggest corporate merger in world history at the time, which built up all the nuclear industry. So I had credentials at the yin-yang, and I used to teach the intro level. I mean, I used to teach freshmen environmental economics, and the first thing we would teach was, when it comes to nuclear fallout and radiation, anybody who uses a term that the solution to pollution is dilution, you could put big flags up because radiation does not ever pollute. It actually grows over time.
That's right.
It actually gets worse over time. And when he said that, and this is the go-to, and it was clear back then, and I knew somewhat that the media, the opposition, the real activists like you and I, got no feel, but that's when I was like, oh, my God. And that's when I got serious on my YouTube site. And I was teaching, you know, I'd been blackballed at the university, but me and a communications professor got in an argument, and the Supreme Court had just ruled that digital copyright, which is a YouTube video, is not airways. It's not the George Carlin words. They mirrored published copyright, literature copyright in the United States, and I'm like, oh, I can say fuck. So I knew that it was based on retention. And I told another professor, you can't. I said, yeah. So I started using fuck, intensity, real sharp, real fast, flipping the 2 minutes if can, because the average YouTube video I knew was only watched 13 seconds. And so I knew it was based on retention. Over about a year's time, 2 years time, I got an email from Google. This is before they kettled it. And they says, you are one of the top 10, not top 10%, top 10 YouTube video vloggers in the world in retention. My retention rate was 79%, unheard of. And so you'd Google, and on the sidebar, Fukushima news, Fukushima meltdowns, Pacific salmon. There would be 20 videos on the sidebar. I'd be 18 of them. BBC might be one. Reuters might be one. And so we were really making a difference. And then all of a sudden, 2017, 18, it all changes. Now you couldn't find me, either you or I, if you sent a search party out and had bird dogs. You can't find us.
Oh, you've been brutalized. My goodness, it's really something.
From an average video count, I used to 3 years ago, I could spit on the ground and get 3,000 views on the video.
That's true, folks. That's 100% true.
It's true. Right now, I tell everybody, I could come up with the reels of Butatape and show a real video of, who shot John Kennedy and have close-ups, unarguable proof, and I'd get 232 views if I was lucky.
If you're lucky, yeah. No, you're lucky now. If you get 200 views now, it's a bit of a miracle. If I see one of your videos getting close to 200, I'm like, they'll stop that before it gets to 200.
Well, you know what I've done, though, Dana? I zig when they zag. So I become very tactical. And over the decade of Fukushima, I've developed a lot of credibility like you have. People used to laugh at us and make fun of us and whatever. They don't laugh and make fun of us anymore because it's dead on right and everybody knows it. Deep down in their hearts, they all know it.
Yeah.
So I have this connections because I know lots of people because I was in the San Onofre. I had emails of lots of very, very influential, powerful people all over the world. So a lot of these videos now, when I make it, I'm specifically talking to one of them. It's made for them. And then I email it to them. Beep. Oh, no, they watch them. So I've gotten very tactical.
Yeah, I actually used to do that. And I'm trying to switch off and just do an educational one, and I'm still angry all the time at these people. I can't subconsciously.
Down. I mean, if we get angry again to say what we're supposed to, like I said this morning on my video this morning, I said it's real simple. And I did the analogy in the Ukraine. I call myself the nuclear energy Bolshevik now. The Bolsheviks took out the royals and the imperialists. So that's what I'm calling myself now. The anti-nuclear, I'm the Bolshevik. Figuratively.
Right. No, that's right.
No, I mean, I'm non-violent, you know that. And so this is all, it's not literal, it's figurative. And so the thing is, I used the analogy this morning. So Russia can attack Ukraine. United States can attack Afghanistan. United States can attack Iraq. Why can't Iraq attack the United States? Why can't Afghanistan attack? Should Ukraine be able to send missiles to the Kremlin? Yeah, we can't have a one-way street, and that's the way with us. So I'm like, Dana and I, they can attack us. I'm in critical condition, and they hired whole teams of trolls. There's YouTube sites out there in my name who are dedicated to slandering me.
Yeah.
I got guns in my face.
Yeah, there's one site out there been slandering you for over 3 years straight. They're out there leaving comments everywhere with your name on it. It's disgusting. Yeah. I actually put a complaint in a few days ago about it. I think it's outrageous.
They don't care. I don't see Google taking those people down. And it's a felony in all 50 states, by the way, because I was in critical condition for most. I mean, they're doing videos saying Kevin is fake and it's cancer.
When you were in the hospital, they went frenzy. I'm surprised they didn't show up and try to kill you with a pillow or something.
Yeah, unplugging the freaking, pull the central line out of my jugular.
I'm sure they were there in the hallway. I guarantee it.
But the sad thing is so I'm like, okay, they can attack us viciously and go like, but we're not allowed to fight back. If we even say anything and try to fight back, so us as anti-nuclear energy activists, they can do the nuclear energy, crime syndicate and their PR firms, they can attack and do whatever they want with no resistance, and we cannot fight back, which blows my mind. They won't let us fight back. I mean, it's a one-way street, and the United States populace and all these YouTubers and all these so-called said activists that are all over, what the fuck is the matter with them not defending you and I? I can't believe these people like Joe Rogan and these people that have huge... Why are they not defending you and I after we've done all this work to prove this? Where the fuck is our teammates? Yeah, we don't have any.
It's hard. I mean, I get it. It's controlled way worse than we ever thought possible. They have a total...
Wouldn't you think somebody would break ranks?
I always felt that, but it didn't happen. And I had talked to a few people from Hollywood, like real superstars, And and they were shocked. They had watched us, and they called me up. A couple of them called me up. I mean, like top superstars, and got on the phone. They asked all the right questions, and they fed off all my answers. They had proper responses, and they were generally, unequivocally terrified of what they were learning. They didn't even really appreciate the actual gravity of the scenario that we were actually in. They were horrified. But they didn't speak out. They didn't help us. And
I've been approached by no less than 10 major documentary filmmakers over the years. I mean, Europe or whatever. In fact, big ones, famous ones, have sat down and talked to me and wanted to do a documentary. And the whole, they're like, and said all the way there, it's like, this is the most compelling story. It's unbelievable, blah, blah, blah. And, I'm all in if you sit down and do it the right way, and I okay everything. And they all balk. All I can figure is they get threatened is all I can figure.
I think
maybe
so.
Who's their funders are.
I had
like,
two.
We're not funding that.
I had two that came into my home with all the equipment, crew, and asked the right questions, interviewed me, put it together, and left. I never heard from them after. And they were they were like, we're going to win the Sundance, right? This is incredible. And they never,
Utah, which is corrupt as hell.
I never heard from him after. It's the damnedest thing. Because it cost a lot of money. That cost a lot of money to do what they done, eh?
Yeah, they got to have funding. And that's what it comes down to. And so they go to whoever their funders are. But now, think about this, though, Dana. All these people that have a lot of money, don't you think one of them, okay, the doctor just told me, I'm 68 years old, and the doctor just looked at me, and I got a lot of money, and, I know what the truth is, and he told me that I'm going to be dead in the next 2 years from cancer, and I've got, $100 million. Don't you think one of those pieces of shit would say, well, let's get a conscience, let's get some deathbed repentance, and let's help Dana and Blanche out? Well, I mean, it blows my mind that hasn't happened.
I'm surprised. I could really, I could really damage the nuclear industry if I was funded.
Yeah.
In 1 year, like just a single year, I would put curb stomp the entire nuclear industry, given the chance. No, I'm sorry to hear about your hardship there, Kevin. You dedicate your life to this, and that's what happens.
Here's the thing, Dana. Here's what I say. We already have wound in them, and believe it or not, I call it nuclear energy Waterloo. I think we've already beat them. And because I'll tell you why. They showed up and they kettled us in and they circled us in too late.
That was a sign of desperation, yeah.
We did the damage, and the damage is done, and so they try to stuff our lightning back in the bottle and put our toothpaste back in the tube. I don't think they can. I think in the back of people's minds, they can't handle this fucking truth. It's hardcore. I really think that they've already lost, and
I feel that way too. Yeah, I feel that way too. But
I think that, we'll never get any credit for it.
No, that's right. I don't expect to. But what my resolve is that I'm only going to get better at what I do every single day, and it only takes a couple of the right people to start researching what I'm talking about or showing, and then they're hooked. They can't be deceived anymore. And at some point, it's already happened, but we're not aware of it, right? Because you've been at this for decades, and same thing is going to happen for you, right? It has happened. I have talked to big players in the industry over the years that were having meetings, and they got me in and asked me the right questions, and you can hear everybody in there saying, well, we're not going to invest money in California, that's for sure. Because California...
that's the only media coverage I've gotten is in San Diego. I used to get some media coverage in the early days on my cancer and my work in San Onofre, and the only reason is San Diego has a lot of good local news, and they fight over it. And so at first, and I have connections down there, and so... and that, of course, that was clear back, and it was a compelling story on San Onofre, and that's how we got San Onofre shut down was, me leaking in all that work that was done inside there, and I had connections that got it to the news, local news, and they put it on the local news. And they did talk about Fukushima down there, but not now. Fuck, nobody will mention it. But like I said, USA Today headline a few days ago. This could Ukraine could turn into worst-case scenario Fukushima-style meltdown. That was on the front page of the USA Today. So, again, it just proves the malice that they do know. And so, I don't know. Like you say, just one day at a time.
Well, like you say, you gotta. We have the moral high ground, and unfortunately, we have the burden of being honest, and we have to. We got to take whatever comes our way, and we got to keep trying to be a guiding light for the future.
I think. I was dying of cancer, going in and out of a coma. Yeah, 2011, 2012 in the fall, I was going in and out of a coma. There's no way that I was going to live. You know, and I did a lot of soul searching, and I made a lot of deals. I mean, I was 190 pounds, and I made a deal with myself, not with God, that I would fight this every day, these monsters that killed my dad, killed Annika, and tried to kill me. I would fight them every day if I was given another chance to live. I was in there with 44 people, the hardcore cancer patients in the world. You know, Marshall Jensen, you can Google him. He's in the room next to me. He's the most famous one. And you know, what, trying to think of her name, the young girl from the Chernobyl who's famous, she was in the room next to me. You know, I'm the only one alive out of the 44 that were in that unit.
Scary.
44 of us. And so I made deals that I would keep fighting this, you know, as long as I was given a second chance to live. And so, you know, I tell everybody, well, you know, it's been an intense fight. You know, we're fighting for the Pacific Ocean. Somebody asked me here a while back, well, why do you keep on for all these people that don't give a shit? And I says, who said I was? You know, I'm fighting for my grandkids. I'm fighting for the animals and the, you know, the seals and the of the Pacific Ocean. You know, and the, you know, the ecology and, you know, the future. That's what I'm fighting for.
Well, it's a worthy fight. There's 8 million recognized species. There's the entire planet, the future of humanity at stake. And it's a noble and stoic act to dedicate your life to something like this. The pursuit of truth, in this case, is more important than my life whatsoever. You know, in the context of, I don't need nothing else to fulfill me in life. I need to do the best I can for this planet.
Peace of mind, they call that. You know,
I sleep like a baby. I work like a dog.
Einstein was the greatest anti-nuclear there ever was. He was hardcore, and they tried to spin his words. That's exactly what he said.
Yeah, there's nothing better. There's no better feeling than going to war against this hateful, despicable industry.
He said the same thing.
Yep.
He said life is bigger than who we are, and standing up to the nuclear energy freak, and he called them the crime syndicate. He says, you know, they spin him everything in, but that's what he said.
It's a duty, man. It's the calling. I can't imagine doing anything else. I really couldn't, because I like you and the people that do follow us. We get it, right? We understand. We're way down the hole. Yeah. We get how late it is, how deep that hole is.
Got way past PhD.
We are in real trouble. This is not a game at all.
No, this is a nightmare. And so
this is.
Freedom Eisenblau is full of cancer in Vienna. She's the head of the Green Party. The Green Party. You know, there's 3 parties. She is it. She requested a meeting with me in 2015. I went over there, and she grilled me for 4 hours.
Yeah,
good. She told me she had cancer. And then she died of cancer. That's why she requested the meeting. And she told me, she says, I know your path. She says, you're the tip of the spear. And she says, don't you drop it. And she says, the last thing she told me, the anti-nuclear energy movement never picked me. It never picked you. I mean, we never picked it. I never picked it.
Oh, it's destiny.
It picked us.
Yeah, it's destiny.
It picked us.
It's 100%.
So,
100%, Kevin.
Well, it just happened. It just happened, and you know, our place in time, right?
Yeah. No, I think my calling was since childhood, and
yeah, me too.
I still don't tell the story, but I probably will one day when I finish my book. Okay, Kevin, let's.
Right on.
We'll let you go, and I'll finish out the show. That was awesome to get you in on the anniversary, my friend.
Thanks for calling, Dana.
Okay.
And thanks to everybody that's out there. You know, they are many and we are few, but that don't mean shit. You know, it's David versus Goliath. And
I can honestly say that everybody at my site loves you, man. That's a fact.
Yeah, for sure. Anybody that knows the truth is going to love this fight, of course. You know, so we, you know. Like I said, it's not how many's watching, it's who's watching.
It's As long as you're honest and nothing else matters, right?
Yeah.
It perseveres through. Okay, my friend. God bless. Have a nice night, Kevin.
Yeah. Okay.
You take care.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah. That was Kevin Blanche. Kevin is known worldwide. He's been at this since he was very, very young. And his dad was a victim of radioactive fallout in the military. One of the guys they had marching into the blast plume. Let me fix everything here, sort this out. Let's check the poll. We're going to get back into that here. What do we got for a poll? We got an amazing... Hi, everybody. Wow, 63 votes with a 97%. Oh, my goodness, that's an incredible... we don't really get a lot of participation per se. We get regular, but not a lot extra, right? And so, let me do this again where we left off here. Fukushima plant is cracking and the radioactive steam is coming up through the ground. So the reactor cores melted down to 9,000 degree Fahrenheit temperatures. They sunk down into the ground. Then they hit the water table. When they hit the water table, a liter of water will expand around 1,200 cubic foot in a millionth of a second or something, or a hundredth of a second, whatever. And so when you got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of tons of liquid uranium at 9,000 degree Fahrenheit temperatures hitting a large body of water, cracks the earth like an earthquake. And then the steam coming up from that is lethal doses. And at 6 Geiger counters, permanent Geiger counters that are maxed out at 10 sieverts an hour, by the way, are all showing their max number. So the steam itself is lethal. And what that happens, it radiates all the structure on the site. This is why no nuclear scientists ever go to the site. Now, Kevin was talking about, he was doing interviews, and he was talking about how the French are the best activists. And I got a little clip here to show you what the French nuclear activists, I love the French nuclear activists.
The clashes were violent and widespread. Hundreds of police and anti-nuclear protesters chased each other through the fields and woodland near Vallon. Roadblocks were set up to try to prevent more protesters converging on the area, but at one point a group managed to block a section of the railway line.
Yeah, the French nuclear protesters, they wear the same type of outfits. They bring baseball bats with them. They have hockey gloves, shoulder pads, knee pads, elbow pads on, because they know the police are going to use violence, and so they're ready. Never hesitate. So a gallon of water from the tanks is a lethal dose to all humans right away. Just walking past a 5-gallon jerry can of water will drop you dead right where you're to. That same 5 gallons of water, of this type of water, which is only beta, they're not including the alpha, gamma, and neutrons, like uranium, plutonium. So 5 gallons of water, you put it at a subway station in Tokyo or New York, and everybody who walks past it every day for 1 million years will die that day. Just 5 gallons of it. Remember, the industry entire legacy is predicated upon deception and misrepresentation, deception, deceit, and dishonesty. They'll talk about cesium, but there's actually 1,000 fission products you better start worrying about. And that, if you go look at the legacy of it, as we have done relentlessly over the last decade, 11 years actually, Fukushima radioactive tanks have already been emptied into the Pacific Ocean because you can't fill the tanks up. It's hemorrhaging directly into the ocean. You can't contain it. So if you're pumping 2 sieverts per hour of radiation in a hose, you can't get near the hose. The hose needs to be 4 feet thick, all sides, of heavy material to shield you from incredible numbers. If you try taking this stuff and putting it through a filtration system like the French's Arriva or the Alps system, the filters are so radioactive within 20 minutes that if you disconnect the radioactive water and put fresh water through, the fresh water coming out the other side is lethal by the gallons, because that's actually how radiation works. The whole concept of filtering is a deception. It's totally a 100% deception, misrepresentation. You can't filter it. So it's pummeled straight into the Pacific Ocean, and proxy is an extinction event. So you can't actually build another tank if you fill up one of the tanks. The tanks were built to trick you and manipulate you into thinking the Pacific Ocean wasn't being irradiated. But as I showed you earlier, the Pacific Ocean is 100% irradiated. Now, top scientist, which is David Suzuki, was a rather interesting statement. Ignore a lot of these facts of that the reactor was already destroyed and David Suzuki is a known puppet, blah, 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 blah. Take into consideration what a nuclear power plant is capable of if things go wrong. He says, Fukushima's most terrifying, and I'll play the video, Fukushima's most terrifying situation you can imagine. And I've seen a paper that says it's bye-bye Japan and evacuate the west coast of North America if Unit 4 goes after a quake. And there's Unit 4 over there, and there's people trying to convince you that it's not gone. Let me explain that earlier. Let me play that clip because that's such a staggering implication. A nuclear power plant can take...
3 out of the 4 plants were destroyed in the earthquake and in the tsunami. The 4th one has been so badly damaged that the fear is if there's another earthquake of a 7 or above, that building will go, and then all hell breaks loose. I have seen a paper which says that if, in fact, the 4th plant goes under an earthquake and those rods are exposed, it's bye-bye Japan, and everybody on the west coast of North America should evacuate. Now, if that isn't terrifying, I don't know what. Fukushima is the most terrifying situation I can imagine.
So I put these pictures there to articulate it. The fuel pools are these depictions right here. I'll bring up a full scale picture. So the fuel pools at the very top of 190-foot buildings, they don't actually exist. So it's gone. So you should have evacuated Japan and the west coast of North America because a single reactor broke down and caught fire and lost its inventories, which happens to be decades of reactor cores because they don't have a repository anywhere in the country. So they're storing it in both of those fuel pools at the top of the buildings that are not designed to take large amounts. I think it's striking. And no matter how you tell this story or how many times you tell this story, it never stops amazing me that the world is still sleepwalking into an extinction event. And so I'm going to pick up on Monday. I'm not coming back on Sunday like normal. I'm actually burnt out and I need a couple of days of rest, and I'm absolutely burnt out. Now, I was in the woods today and took out the cameras that we leave in the woods because we only had them a short while. I moved them, and I'm going to play a couple of little videos. I'm going to play a couple of little videos. Maybe. Where are we to? Okay, so this was camera 1. This was today. this video coming up. Okay, we're almost to the first camera. It's March 11th, 2022. So the first camera is right at these trees coming up. And camera is still here. That's so awesome. Hi, Stephen. Okay, so yeah, just give me a second. Here, I switch gears. No worries. Hi folks, we're gonna put Stephen Young online in a second here.
But I actually wanted to make a couple of comments about the Ukraine.
We're almost got you ready, Stephen. Okay, so we got Stephen Young is on the phone, folks. Go ahead, Stephen.
Number one, I believe if Russia really wanted to invade the Ukraine, they could have done it in one day. Why wait for them to get Stinger missiles and machine guns and stuff?
Yep.
And I believe it's really funny that the only part of Ukraine that they've invaded is where the United States had 15 bioweapon labs.
Right.
Stephen Young is on the phone, please. Go ahead, Stephen. I just wanted to say that I think Russia could have invaded Ukraine in one day if they wanted to. It's funny, the only part of Ukraine they've invaded is where we had, the USA had 15 bioweapon labs.
Yeah, so there's going to be a delay on, you got my video playing in the background there. And so there's a delay, probably 15 or 20 seconds from what you say when you hear it.
That's all right.
Yeah, go ahead, Stephen.
The last thing I wanted to comment on is it's funny how the United States can invade all the countries we've invaded, and no one ever sanctioned us.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. Who's going to sanction America, really? Because
we're probably the most evil country on the planet.
unfortunately, yeah, well, not the people, but the government is, yeah.
Yeah, it's bad.
Yeah. Yeah,
That
that's...
was all I really had to say. But I hate to say that on the anniversary of Fukushima, but...
No. I got the headlines to back up your assertions for sure, right? You're 100% right in saying what you're saying. I'm still working each day. It's just that I haven't stopped for over a decade, and so I'm in auto mode all the time. But it's catching up to me. I need a couple of days off, and
I don't blame you. I think a couple days off.
It's just I feel like I shouldn't take time off. I feel guilty if I take a day off, just because the world is desperate need of truth and facts, right? Okay, anything else, Stephen? Anything else?
Anyway, Dana, I'll let you go.
Okay, Stephen.
I thought I'd make a couple of comments. I think Ukraine is just obfuscation.
Yeah, it's a distraction and a nasty one at that, isn't it?
Anything they can do so you don't know the truth of Fukushima or the whole COVID scam.
Yes, horrifying.
So anyway.
Okay, bud. Thank you.
I'll save it.
We'll talk to you soon,
Bye.
Stephen. Okay, thank you, my friend. And a lot of people find it awkward when they phone in to the live show, and I get it. I've been there years and years ago. Okay, and so let me go back to those videos for you, because after that, so this was from the day from the trail cams. I was going in to pick up the trail cams. Let's continue the video. We haven't been able to get in here because we had quite a bit of snow, but this last couple of days we had a good thaw, and the next 2 days are heavy rain. And so this was today, this afternoon, a few hours ago. Forward to I went in and picked up the cameras. I'm looking forward to seeing what we captured on those cameras. We got a set of tracks there. They're not too old. They're dog tracks, right? But okay, so I got a set of tracks that are. Let me see. So it picked up me leaving. Picks up me going back home. That was back when I put the camera there. Now I moved these cameras a few days ago, and this was unusual. They got 2 dogs there. But it was encouraging to see the camera actually works, because I've been having real bad luck. But you can see how hard it is to aim the camera. It's a lot harder than it looks to aim these cameras. So they turn around right in front of the camera and hit it back. Bless their hearts and their puppies. This little cutie coming up in a second here. Neither one of the dogs checked out the cameras, so I done something right. And so we had a bird land in front of the camera and fly in front of the camera. See that? And that's basically all we caught right here was the 2 birds, which is means we're up to 14 birds since November. So that works. And then there was a quad went past it, but never caught it. What else was there? Yeah, like the leaves will set it off the branches, and that's me this afternoon coming to pick it up. So that was the first video. I had the camera in my hand when I drove up. Okay. And so the second camera was 85. This one had something like 12 captures. The second camera was back about 50 feet. Right in front of the camera is not that tree right there. That's what those dogs' tracks were looking at. Hopefully that picked it up. It's supposed to be able to pick up the tracks from... this was this afternoon. From 100 feet away from the object, and we're probably 50 feet away from the quad. Oh shit! There's a few branches got in front of the lens and the sensor. Look at that! Look at that! Brutal. Shit. So I ended up with. I get some pictures here first. Yeah, so you can see some branches. That was about 22 hours after I put the camera there. Those branches fell down. We had a lot of heavy winds. And so I got all kinds of videos that are... So we might have got nothing. Must have been all that wind. We had a lot of wind for the last number of days. So we never got nothing off of this, any stuff like this. I'll play the video. Just little pieces of it. Right, because I got branches in front of it now. Now it's day on clock. These are all videos. I'm not going to play them for you, but there's 85 of these little videos. And so I never picked up anything coming down the path, unfortunately. It was all just, well, you know, it's a learning curve, right? So that's too bad. 85 pictures like that, or videos like that, because I have it set for 1 minute videos. And we got heavy rain tomorrow, heavy rain the next day. And so I'll get back in on Monday, hopefully, and set them up somewhere else. But now, that's my second time. We never got nutting the first time. I moved them. We did get 2 birds. So that's... How many trips does it usually take me to find 2 birds on the research? It usually takes 3, 4, 5, 6 trips to find a bird or 2. That's a total of 14 birds we found here on the East Coast, which is... This is absurdness. And some of these expeditions, I cover 80 kilometers in a day. And we've only found 2 birds on those expeditions. And they were fairly close to the community before I got outside of it. And so that's it's a lot of work, but it's still, I'll get the kinks out of it. I found the axe. It's where we're supposed to be, and got rid of the other equipment. The axe is now in the back of the quad. And probably going to put the quad on the trailer on Monday and go to another place about 40 kilometers away and hopefully leave the cameras there. Okay, and so Monday we're going to start covering the headlines from yesterday, the day before, today, tomorrow. I got a big pile of Fukushima headlines from the last couple of days, all cover stories, all downplaying the significance of it. There's a couple of there that are talking about still high-level radiations in certain areas, but the truth is much worse than what they're alluding. And we've been picking up a lot of gear this week. A lot of equipment, and the only thing, there's a couple of items I still got to try to pick up, raise the money for, will be, there's a $500 air tool set on sale right now, 4 air tools, ratchets and die grinders and impact wrenches, because I don't have them. For $140 plus taxes, we need to get that set before the sale goes. And then we need a big volume compressor. I can probably buy a second-hand one of those. And we'll have most of the tools because we have so much equipment, right? We have boats and trailers and motors, generators and quads and blah, 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 blah. All kinds of equipment, and we can't afford to pay the mechanics like we've been doing. It's just killing me. And I can do the work. It's just I'm not a young person anymore. It's very difficult. But if I got the tools, I can accomplish it. I'm going to come in and say goodnight to everybody, I guess. Because I don't want too long of a video for the anniversary. Because there's a lot of new people coming through. Looks like somebody was carrying one of my videos. Because it was pretty dismal. I posted 5 videos today. And 55 views, 71 views. 387 views is a big number for Dana. 80 views and 20. So that video, I started posting videos. I slept on purpose yesterday evening till last night, till 1 o'clock in the morning. Got up, got the studio heated up, turned all the equipment on, and started producing videos so I can start posting videos all day long, right? And that's what I done. In the hopes that we can bring a few more people to this story because it's such an important story. And so it's okay. Those videos are real. Those 5 videos, they're very valuable videos. If you're trying to explain to a friend, that's 1 and 2 minute videos keyed specifically to those topics. They're guaranteed to wake anybody up. Super useful videos. I recommend people download them. There's links at the bottom of my description. We're trying to raise another 250 to pick up. I like to pick up a drill set. We got a 300-piece drill set on sale for $50 Canadian, and the air tool set, which is normally over $400, almost $500. Well, it is $500 when taxes are included. Are on sale for another couple of days for $140 plus taxes. That's you got to think about all the equipment that I got that I need to do repairs on. That's the right thing to do, right? Because a mechanic will eat that on nothing, you know. So I'm hoping to raise the extra money. bought all the other equipment I was hoping to get this week. And we just need to finish it out. Let's come in and say goodnight to everybody regardless, because it was a great show tonight. We covered an absurd amount of little documentation. We had Gar on talking about his spectrometer and what he's seeing. That's frightening stuff. And we're going to close the vote down. We got a staggering 70 votes. 97% said Japan did not remove the reactor cores or the fuel from reactor 4. And that's the right answer, by the way. So we're going to end that poll and do a quick shout out, and we'll call it a weekend. Obsolete Optics, good night. Ayers, thank you. Albert, Dana Nasana, again, thank you, Dana. And Peaceware, James Lucid, hugs for you, my friend. Chelsea, I know Chelsea's been going good there tonight. Thank you, Chelsea. And Thinker, and hugs for everybody who's watching this in the background and later tonight. And don't forget to give us a thumbs up if you haven't. Costs as little and goes a long way. Andrew B. And he's been asking about Stephen Young lately, so hopefully he caught Stephen on the phone tonight. Keb Das, thank you, Keb. Probably going to butcher a few people's names tonight. My apologies in advance. James Megan, hi James. And John Curtis. Just scrolling down through the names to the most, from the top down to the most recent comments. I know I seen Colette S was there earlier. Hopefully Colette's seen some of those pictures. It'll get better. I'll get the kinks out of those cameras. I expected to make mistakes, right, originally. And you can see I upgraded the locks this week. So we got really nice locks for the cameras. They're not cheap. What we got for the cameras, that's expensive stuff. We're just hoping it's worth spending the money, because it's a big financial hit if somebody steals it on you. If they want it, they'll get it. They'll go home and get a chainsaw and come in and chop the tree down. And so I'm hoping to hide it, to get good at it. Gar Wood, who brought us, Gar Wood is the guy who called in with the spectrometer. Down in Michigan, is it, I believe? Albert, I only serve one king. Hi, Lori. Port Angeles, which is Sue. Mr. Sir. Great name. And that was a frightening finding in the cereal. My goodness. Was it 300 counts per minute in gamma in the cereal, which kids are eating all the time? It's truly frightening. Patrick and Philip L. donated $30 a few days ago. So thank you, Philip. I forgot to mention that on the last video. My apologies. But I did get it. Darlene. And I like saying, so people know I actually got the donation. I like acknowledging it, because that way people don't have to wonder about it. Timber Traveler, Blue Jay, Outpost. We had lots of people chatting tonight. That was fantastic. And the anniversaries are very difficult times for everybody, I think. Darren James Spencer, thank you, Darren. We're coming down through the comments section. And we got another, I got Starlight. We got a text message from Diane. Yeah, all love to you too, Diana. Thank you, honey. Just going through the names quickly. We're almost down through the names. I don't want to make the video too long because it's an anniversary video. The longer it is, the harder it is to get new people to watch it. Andrew B. again. Just in case I miss anybody. I really hate it when I miss somebody. And when I read the comments after, I usually miss one or two people. Never the same person, but it usually happens to me. I am getting better. Stephen Young, and Stephen called in, by the way. Anybody wasn't here and just getting here. It's nice to hear Stephen because it wasn't that long ago he couldn't even dial the phone. He was that sick. He's gone through a lot of rehab to be able to do something simple like dialing the phone, something we take for granted. He had to struggle to accomplish it. Nirad Yiloft. Can I see your YouTube comments, Diana Wolf? Yeah. Your comments are there, Diana. So they're there. But you can't see them is what you're saying, I think, is it? Mr. Sir, thank you. Ted Richards? I know, Ted. No worries. We appreciate it. It's a tough subject for people, right, to listen to regular, and I get that. And I don't expect people to come here regularly. I really don't, and so I'm always surprised when they do. Colette S., thank you, Colette. We got 63 thumbs up, I think. It's fantastic. That's it. That's all of it. It's going to be brutal rain tomorrow, brutal rain the next day. So I won't be in the woods doing any research because I got to come to a stop for 2 days. And it's just been a lot of stress the last couple of weeks because of obvious reasons. But we are only going to get better and stronger, and we will never falter. We will never give up. We will fight for you and your friends and your families and your loved ones and your pets and your community and this entire planet. With every fiber in my bone, every day, I wake up worried, sick, and running. And as anybody knows me, knows this is true. This is a non-stop, relentless pursuit of the truth. And we have found the truth. And we want to share it with you. Conrad, Felix, that's it for me, folks. I remind everybody again that the links are at the very bottom of the description if you want to donate. We've been doing it for years. There's no issues whatsoever. It's very simple to do. There's only two ways you can donate to me. They're both below. There's actually a third way. There's a merchandise link below where I sell t-shirts and mugs and blankets and bags with some of my logo of anti-nuclear or pro-life as we call it on it. SCH. Did I get everybody? I did. Looking forward to reading everybody's comments after I get a cup of tea and settle down. We'll see everybody. We'll see everybody on Monday, I guess. Because this is Friday. I think if I take only one day off, I won't make it through next week. So we'll see everybody on Monday night, same time as we started tonight, the regular time. God bless everybody. Hugs for everybody. My apologies that we haven't destroyed the nuclear industry yet, but we definitely put some big holes in their ships, and they know it. Hugs for everybody. Have a great night, a great day tomorrow, and a great weekend. We'll see everybody soon. Don't forget to share if you can. Give us a thumbs up. It all goes to helping Have a great night, folks. Yeah. Good night, folks. Have a great night. Great day tomorrow. We'll see everybody soon.